It's been said that luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Welcome to the Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast, where we will focus on all things hunting in the backcountry, not just in Australia, but everywhere that backcountry hunting is possible. My name is Tobias, and if you're a hunter with no backpacking experience, or even an expert, I would like you to join me as we explore gear, places, and technologies, hear lived experiences, different perspectives, and share the passion that people have for a hard-earned backpack hunt. I appreciate you being here with me as I try to increase the knowledge that will bring us better luck in the backcountry. The Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast is proud to welcome two new partnerships for 2024. Skeleton Optics Australia and On Track Meals are now both sponsors of the show. Skeleton Optics Australia is a family-run Australian-based business offering premium high-performance and durable sunglasses for active outdoor users. Skeleton Optics sunglasses use polarized Zeiss lenses and feature frames designed with lightweight and impact-resistant materials that provide a secure and comfortable fit. I personally now use Skeleton Optics sunglasses and would encourage you to reach out to Chris and Daniela if you would like further information on what glasses might suit you best. On Track Meals are made in Brisbane and is a 100% Australian and veteran-owned business. On Track Meals pride themselves on producing high-quality, shelf-stable, healthy, real food designed to be taken with you on your next adventure. Because the meals are not dehydrated or freeze-dried, they have retained all the flavour, don't require any water to be added, simply heat and eat, or they can even be eaten cold. They have a broad selection of meals with many more being planned and cater for some allergies and diet options. The coconut ginger chicken is now my new favourite, and On Track Meals will be accompanying me on many future adventures. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Australian Hunting Backcountry. And today I am joined by Luke, who is representing Braken Wear. Luke, just go and introduce yourself for us all.
G'day, mate. Thanks for having me on. As you said, my name's Luke, and I've been a hunter for pushing 25 plus years now that I've been serious about my hunting. And didn't really have much of a choice in life. My father was a hunter before I was even born. He and his next door neighbour started the Mount Isa Bow Hunters Club, the ABA club, which still runs. And I believe it's either the oldest or the second oldest ABA club, either in Queensland or Australia. I'm not really sure, but I think it's Queensland. I was exposed to hunting and being in the outdoors from a very young age, going camping and canoeing and, swimming in western rivers and stuff like that with my father, my older brother, and then a little bit later on, my younger sister. It's just something that I think is literally in my blood, and it's something that I've had the exposure to, I've had the experience with. I was in, Cubs before technically I should have been in it. I was a bit too young, but my older brother was in it, and I sort of begged and pleaded and whinged and whined and sooked until mum and dad let me join. But did scouts and all that stuff as well, and later on army reserves and whatnot. And then as a bit of an older teenager, when I got the opportunity, I was able to take myself and get stuck into hunting for myself, I suppose you could say. And as a lad, used to do a lot of fishing, used to ride down to the river and fish with my mates and that sort of thing every chance we got. And it's just something that I've always enjoyed doing. The outdoors is always somewhere I love being, and what more can I say? One thing leads to another in this form of life, as you know, and here we are talking on a podcast. So, yes, it's something that I love sharing, I love talking about, I love helping people get into, and I love helping people out that are already involved in the pastime or the sport. So, yeah.
Yep. I'm the same, mate. If I'm not, it just seems these days if I'm not thinking about it or talking about it or doing it, then I don't know what else I am doing.
Yep.
So I see on your Instagram you do own some rifles, but it looks like you are primarily handling the struggle stick.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I suppose I've still got my very first bow that I was given when I was a young tacker, and I was that young I can't even remember being given it. I just know I got it when my brother got something a bit bigger, a bit harder to pull back, just a little fiberglass recurve, um, and that's just been what I knew as hunting.
Yep.
Um, and I as I mentioned, my father was a bow hunter. Some of my earliest, and I mean absolute earliest memories are dad making arrows, dipping them wooden Port Orford cedar shafts in the paint, and the smell of both the glue and that's not really. I shouldn't encourage that too much, sniffing glue, but but more so the smell of the Port Orford cedar, And if anyone's ever made Port Orford cedar arrows, you cannot mistake or forget that smell.
Yep.
He'd obviously sharpen the or taper the points with a big pencil sharpener type setup, and for gluing broadheads and field points on, and then nocks on the other end, and the smell of those shavings was just so intoxicating.
Mm.
Um, and then he used to dip them in this orange paint with blue feathers, blue and white or blue and pink, and would crest the top with a bit of white. But then he'd hang them all on the washing line, and they'd drip. The paint would drip, and Mum would get all these drips on the grass around the underneath of the washing line. But
Yeah.
so bow hunting was just been what I was born into, I suppose. And Dad, we were living in the early '80s after he was up at Mount Isa. In the early '80s, first half of the '80s, out at Mara in in central Queensland there,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just what Dad did, played squash and went hunting, and so when it was time for not time, but when I started wanting to do it myself as well, it was just a natural thing to flow into, and sort of that just is what I knew. Dad always had a Marlin 30-30 lever action,
Mm-hmm.
but between me being born and a certain prime minister making things very difficult for firearms owners,
Mm-hmm.
and Dad deciding that he wasn't interested in going down that road and bothering with it anymore, I never saw a bullet put through it. I
Mm-hmm.
never saw a round fired from it. So it was just in the cupboard. And I, kind of had hopes of inheriting it one day, but at the time when Dad decided that it wasn't something he was going to hang on to, I wasn't in a position that I was living overseas to get a firearms license. So unfortunately, it had to go by the by.
Yeah.
Um, but more recently, I've gotten into my firearms primarily because I may or may not have fallen off my roof and broken my leg, and
Could be
the
alleged.
it could be alleged that
Mm.
there may have been imprints of my heels on the lawn where I landed, and spending time on the couch trying to, doing my rehab and the titanium screws in my leg and stuff like that. I sort of wasn't sure as to how I'd handle the miles and hills and stuff that I like to walk when I am hunting, because I'm a guy who just parks and walks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like driving, or I drive as minimally as possible when I get to a property. Um, and it's nothing for me to cover 15 or 20 k's in a day. And obviously that declines in hilly country, but the intensity goes up. So I wasn't sure how my leg would handle it. And I thought, well, while I'm here, I may as well sign up and start looking at getting my firearms license.
Mm.
And that's been a really interesting experience. I may or may not have purchased a Marlin lever action, just like the one I'd hoped to inherit from my father.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also since picked up a 22 mag, just a little single shot 22, and more recently a nice 223. So I'm enjoying that. To date only shot the one pig, a couple of hares, a couple of rabbits, because I still mostly hunt with the bows.
Yeah.
But the firearms thing I'm really enjoying, and Um, it's it's certainly I don't know. It's a different experience. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, look, I have to admit I have had very little experience with archery equipment. Done a little bit, but yeah, my knowledge is certainly in firearms, not in archery.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
but it's always been one of those things that, and it for me personally, it probably came down to financial reasons,
Yep.
because obviously it's another significant investment buying a good bow and good arrow setup and all of that sort of thing. But it's always been one of those things that I've
Mm.
really thought I would enjoy, and particularly here in Queensland with the red deer hunting, some of
Mm.
the country, you can get in really tight with them. And there have been times where I've had a stag come out of the bush in front of me and literally been too close for the scope. If I was going to shoot
Yep.
it, I would have had to turn my rifle on the side and sort of sight over the barrel. So I've
Yep.
always thought that would be exciting to do, with an archery
Absolutely.
setup. But again, it's that it's a deep hole, financial hole that you've got to dive down really to invest in some good gear. But
Yep.
and the other thing I've always wanted to do is hunt elk in the bugle over in America.
Yes.
And
Yep.
a lot of places, a majority of the places over there, you can only do that with archery. So
Archery gear. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm actually in. I could look up my phone, but let's just say just over 3 weeks time, I'm heading overseas, and one of our stops, we're spending about a week and a half, 2 weeks in Colorado.
yep,
And unfortunately, the week before I get there, my very good mate Roger, who we're stopping to see, he drew his ticket to hunt elk, and it's the week before I'm there. So
uh,
I'm a bit filthy with Roger at the moment because not that I'd be able to hunt, but I'd be able to tag along and look over his shoulder. That's for sure. So,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I'm still excited to get into the country there and to have a look around, irrespective of actually being able to hunt them or not. So,
Mm, mm.
um,
Have you looked into getting any other tags while you're over there? There's plenty of other species you can hunt.
oh, there are 100%, but it's a family trip. It's the intention isn't hunting. So I'm just mindful of not hijacking that. We've
Yeah,
got the two young girls
yeah,
and my wife and I going. So I'll look at stuff like that in the future, and probably for obviously also for the convenience of the bank balance, I'll probably just do solo trips over, or
yeah,
with another hunting partner.
yeah. Fair enough.
Um,
Mm,
but yeah, it's not that intention. So I would love to absolutely take that opportunity, but we're doing the family thing, and we're actually traveling through Canada, and also the US and then Europe. But most of it is catching up with either family or former colleagues and friends. So
yep.
yeah, it's just a really enjoyable family trip, I suppose. Yeah.
Mm, all right. Oh, that sounds good. So prior to the alleged injury to your lower body, um, what sort of hunting were you doing? Was it all local based, or were you travelling around in different parts of Australia?
My story is a little bit interesting, and there's a period there where I wasn't hunting at all, where I was living overseas, and not the places I was living wasn't, Shanghai City, for example. There's not much to hunt there, but a good bargain at the markets,
Mm-hmm,
and a nice feed of spicy beef noodle soup.
mm-hmm,
But and then from there, moving over to Switzerland for a number of years as well. While there's hunting in Europe too, it wasn't something that it was able to fit in with working and lifestyle at the time. So when we came back to Australia, and that I sort of had to kick everything off again, and try and regain property access and things like that,
yep,
because a lot of time had lapsed, and farms had changed hands, or maybe those mates who you went with weren't hunting anymore, or they'd moved to different places as well, or or whatever. So, but most of my hunting, goats and pigs, I've done a lot of hunting in the New England area, Tenterfield, Stanthorpe, Seven,
Mm-hmm.
Glen Innes, and done a lot of hunting out in central Queensland because of my family history and having lived out there and worked out there myself. So I've got friends out there who own properties and stuff like that that I'm able to go to,
Mm-hmm.
but predominantly cut my teeth. I think my first kill was a rabbit with a bow. My first sort of larger game was a goat. Yep, down at Tenterfield.
Yeah.
I've skinned that, tanned it, still got the skin rolled up and stashed under the bed somewhere or something like that.
Yep.
Um, and then pigs and all that as well.
Yeah.
And I've had a bit of opportunity to hunt deer too. So yeah, a lot of spot and stalk stuff for me. I have trouble sitting still.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I love hunting pigs. But then the times of the opportunity to hunt chital, for example, too, it's just the complete other end of that spectrum. They're so wide and so intense that you've got to be so switched on
Mm.
that challenge is just off the charts. And yeah, if any opportunity I get to hunt chital is something I'll always jump at.
Yeah, and because they are such a herd animal as well, it's not just,
Absolutely.
a few sets of eyes, it's a few dozen sets of eyes that you've got to be mindful of. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, I do know that. But I have read comments where people have said, chital are an easy hunt because they're where they're living and so forth. And I've always thought, yeah, they might be easy with a rifle from a distance, but pick up a bow and have a crack.
Hmm.
I think then you'll see a very distinct difference.
Oh, mate, the first week I spent hunting them was just a ridiculous eye opener for me. I saw them duck arrows.
Mm.
You literally dodge arrows. There's one day there we were out at Charters Towers. We're sitting up off the floodplain area, and there was a mob of deer like a couple of 100 meters away, and there were two of our friends were stalking in on them, and we could see them moving in. We were just sitting there watching,
Mm.
and as is more often than not, the deer spooked, be it they saw them or the wind. I can't really recall, but I remember the deer ran and they ended up running in an arc and ended up coming up basically straight at us.
Mm.
And the grass where we were was sort of shoulder high, brown grass. We were all just sitting there. I think there was four of us because a few of us had met up and we just thought, oh, we'll watch this, see how the boys go. And we were looking through our binos, and then all of a sudden these deer are running towards us, and one of the lads had a recurve, and he was quickest to get an arrow out, and he was sort of half, on his knees, half bent over, and as they're running at us, he's come up full draw and come up slowly, and this doe was just running straight at him, and he's let this arrow fly, and it's literally just dodged around it.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming straight at it, like just head on running at this arrow, and he's just gone like a snake around this thing. It's like,
Yeah.
Did we just see that?
Mm.
It was incredible. They're phenomenal animals. Like they blow me away. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I've seen a few videos and heard archers talk about the deer ducking the string, and
Mm.
yeah, and you'll see them. Mule deer and fallow seem to be some of the best ones at it, and
Yep.
yeah, then the arrow will sail just over their back and maybe trim a little bit of hair off, and away they go. And I've sort of read debates about the noise that the arrow makes, and
Yep.
trying to quieten it down as well, and how a 4 vein fletch will potentially produce less noise than a 3 vein and all that sort of thing. So again, it's like I said, I'm right into the rifles and reloading and that sort of thing, and that's a very deep pool that I'm swimming in at the moment, and I can see that that archery would be just as deep, but in the different direction.
It's phenomenal actually because I had that the experiences I did when I was up there that particular week, and it got to the point where I had a friend actually shoot arrows past me with my gear and my arrows just into a termite mound. I stood behind a tree,
Mm-hmm.
And I was quite surprised at the noise my arrows were making,
Mm.
and that made me reassess, the broadheads I was using, the fletchers I was using, that sort of stuff. And back to camp, actually, take a number of different types of broadheads with me when I hunt, but had my kit there and swap these heads out, put others on, and noticed a change straight away.
Mm-hmm.
So it speaks volumes to how wide these animals are, that something might be coming at them at 250 feet a second, and they can still pick it up and dodge it that quick when you're only 30 meters away from the get go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a phenomenal experience to really make sure you've got everything dialed in, as opposed to the old pig who's lying down having a sleep, or
Yep. Yep.
munching on clams. You can more or less walk up and shoot it if it's not looking at you and the wind's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
You can just about kill them with a hammer sometimes.
yeah. It's pretty phenomenal.
Mm.
But but it's definitely a rabbit hole. That's for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So I realise that your gear is probably changing all the time and so forth. But in terms of the setup that you've got, what are you actually running at the moment?
The main bow I'm shooting at the moment, over the years I've bought and sold numerous bows, and certain ones that I've really liked I've hung on to. So I've got a bit of a collection, as we tend to have with different bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I have I've got a Hoyt. It's got a Hoyt Factor 30, so it's only 30 inches from axle to axle, so made fairly short for bow hunting maneuverability.
Mm-hmm.
It's an 80-pound bow, and I'm all of 5'8", so not exactly the tallest bloke with the longest draw length. And I've found the previous bow I was using, which was a 60 to 70-pound bow, given that I've got a short draw length of only 26 and a half inches, that ability to get the full value for money over 70 pounds, um, given that I can pull 80 all day without a problem.
Mm.
I looked, beautiful bow to shoot, super accurate and all that, but I wanted to go to something heavier, just because that would give me that better velocity with the arrow.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it's actually a 9-year-old bow. That it's old technology in the scheme of things, 2014 model, but I had fully stripped it down. Got some big fella bowstrings custom made for it. Got all the cams and all the other, the limb pockets and everything. I got them all Cerakoted and stuff.
Mm.
I had the riser dipped, hydro dipped, and then outfitted it with new stabilizer and rangefinder, not rangefinder, sights and stuff. I got the Garmin A1 on there,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's just a beautiful bow to shoot.
Yep.
Absolutely beautiful bow to shoot.
That site you're talking about, that's got an integrated rangefinder in it, and then it adjusts the sight
Yep,
for you, doesn't it?
that's correct. So you
Yeah.
you basically get it, you put it on your bow, and you go through a calibration process, and you shoot at I think the minimum you can shoot to start with is 15 meters, and then you can step back, you're either 5 or 10, you choose basically, and you
Mm.
tell it. Um, and then you step back as far as you kind of want it to be calibrated for your maximum shot. So
Mm.
mine, for example, is 55 meters. Um, and it's calibrated to there mostly for practice, because I don't like hunting anywhere near those distances with the bow.
Yep.
But practicing at those distances obviously helps make you more consistent or more accurate, or certainly makes those closer shots feel that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of win your psychological game there from the get go, if that's the case.
Yep.
And for me, the choice to use that sight is primarily based on the fact that I'm very time poor, um, with 2 young girls and too many other things that take up that time,
Mm.
to be able to put in the practice that more traditional methods deserve and demand. So for me to be able to maintain the integrity of my level of ethical hunting that I want to, that I think hunters should, I looked at this bit of kit and thought, well, that for me enables me to more consistently affect a humane kill, um, even though I'm not able to put in as much time as I want and do the right thing when I'm hunting and to make sure that the animal suffers as little as possible. And I love technology. It's an amazing bit of kit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, yep. The other aspect I like is that, even though I still carry a rangefinder, that's in my bino harness as a matter of default. And it's there too then if I use the rifle, if I want to range something. The ability to pull the bow back and range something is less, without having to range it first.
Yeah.
Means it's less movement, less chance of getting spotted at those close quarters. So
Yeah.
I find that a good advantage as well.
Yeah. And it takes that, like I said, I know very little about bow hunting, but from what I've seen, it removes that kind of guesswork, because when a bow hunter will set themselves up in a position, wait for the animal to come in, they'll range various objects. So they'll range that tree, they'll range to that rock, they'll range to this tree, to that shrub, and so forth. And then when the animal comes in, it's kind of a guess where they are, knowing those pre-existing ranges. So that device is going to remove any doubt whatsoever, because you're ranging directly to the animal instead of kind of, is it 3 feet in front of that tree, or is it 4 feet, this side of that bush, or what, So,
Yep.
yeah, I can see that in terms of ethics and affecting as clean a kill as possible, it's certainly advantageous to have that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And it's been an interesting process to see the technology of rangefinders embraced over the years, from when they first came in. And I was just a few weeks ago when I was hunting with my mate Barry, joking about the big, bulky, binocular-sized rangefinder that he used to have. Down to these things that literally fit in your palm now. But also to see the changing in the attitude towards them. And not that I had a negative attitude towards them, but when they became a technology that was accessible, I wasn't hunting with sights. I was hunting bare bow, so I was shooting instinctively.
Yep.
And when you do that, it's like throwing a tennis ball. You look at what you want to hit, you pull back, and you shoot.
Yep.
And your mind's eye and that hand-eye coordination is what gets the arrow to go where you need it to accurately. And that's where that style of shooting, and it's obviously the same style that and sorry, I should define, I was shooting with a compound at that stage, but with no sights.
Right.
So not with a recurve or a longbow, it was still a compound bow. And it was called shooting bare bow. But obviously it's the way that traditional bow hunters with longbows and recurves shoot. And it demands a heck of a lot of practice, because you just have to keep that muscle memory, that mind's eye, and that hand-eye coordination fine-tuned. And I had the time then, with the equipment that I had, to be able to shoot 400 arrows 5 days a week, to the point where, I wasn't using a release aid either. It was just shooting with fingers off the string, and the tips of my fingers were reasonably numb just from shooting so many arrows.
Yep.
But I could group, a tennis ball size at 30 meters with 6 arrows, no problems at all. Whereas as the technology came in and sights became more common on compound bows and release aids, and then obviously rangefinders became adopted. Sorry, my watch is talking to me. Then, people would start to use them, and there was a little bit of flack, a little bit of kickback. But it was the same when compound bows came in, in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And my father's told me some interesting stories about that side of things as well.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys use them too for practicing their range estimation. So in the sense where before you were saying, if you set up somewhere, say Whistling Fox is in or something like that, you'll pre-range so that if it comes past that stump or that rock or that tree, it's 30 meters, it's 20 meters. But also just walking around, you'll pull out your rangefinder and have a bet with your mate. How far do you think it is to that stump?
Yeah.
And then see who gets the closest guess. So it helps train that mind's eye. So in the instance, if you don't get the chance, or you might get busted with too much movement, you're more tuned into what those distances might be.
Yeah. Yep. I think anytime there's a new technology introduced into the hunting industry, whether it's archery or rifles, there's always that controversy and the critics and that sort of thing. I remember reading an article in an old shooting magazine, and they were reflecting on how heavily criticised telescopic sights were when they were introduced to hunting rifles. And, people were very vocal about it and how they should be illegal because, it was unfair and, it's got to be over iron sights and that sort of thing. And nowadays, you wouldn't even consider buying a rifle without a scope on it. So, and I think I'm now I went to the Deer Expo down in Warragul in Victoria in May, and spoke to a couple of people down there. And now thermals are the next sort of line of controversy that we've got across. So obviously, all this technology has a certain place, and it will always, I guess, be abused, for want of a better term, by perhaps certain small elements in the community. But generally, if it finds its niche and sticks there, it then just kind of becomes, painted over and then part of the woodwork.
That's right. It just becomes part of the list of tools that are available for people to participate in the pastime as they want to, and that's, had a conversation on Monday, basically saying the same sort of thing where, as long as people are participating humanely, and harvesting animals in a humane fashion, then I personally have no problem with what it is they're doing. Obviously legally as well. I think I have, I take exception when certain hunters want to tell other hunters how they should or shouldn't do things just on their own preconceived notions or ideas or their own biases, or prejudices to a particular style of hunting or whatever. I think the time is well past for that infighting of hunters or by hunters towards other hunters is something that should happen at all. We well know the pressure that is on the pastime of hunting, be it game hunting, fishing hunting, feral shooting, whatever it is. We know full well that we need to have each other's backs and support people in their chosen ethical, humane, legal practices of hunting pursuits. Not turn around and say, I'm not a big fan of this style or that style or whatever, so therefore I'm not going to support you. It's just, it doesn't fly anymore. We've got too many pressures and too many well coordinated pressures that are having too much effect.
I think that's an excellent point. This separatism that's going on across all of hunters, and I say the word hunters as a holistic term,
for sure,
to include bow hunters, rifle hunters, blokes that just shoot out at the range, pistol shooting, shotgun, target shooting, even fisher. Shouldn't say fishermen because that's a sexist
fisher
term.
People.
Fisher people, fly fishermen, regardless. If you're out there taking an animal for sport or for your own personal use, we are all under the same umbrella, and we all need to start sticking together, because dividing us and attacking us in those little silos is how they're going to beat us. And I was going to sort of refer back to something you said before about the previous Prime Minister and what happened with the firearms and so forth. And we've seen and we're still seeing the fallout from that. We're still seeing firearms being banned simply based on their looks. Is one of the most recent Instagram sort of posts I've seen recently in New South Wales, because even though it functioned completely independently to a semi-automatic or that sort of style rifle, it was technically a bolt action or a pump action rifle, but because of the appearance of the rifle, they chose to ban it, and they had the legislation that enabled them to do that. And we're not America. We don't have Second Amendment rights and that sort of thing here. But again, I come back to this. That sort of thing should be an issue that affects all of us, regardless of what you're picking up, to go and entertain yourself, it should affect all of us. And we're seeing bow hunters under attack now as well.
South Australia,
you
big
had
time.
the South Australia, down in Tasmania. It won't be long before it kind of creeps into other states as well. So, yeah, we're going down a political rabbit hole here, which probably didn't need to. But I think the message out of all of that is and why I wanted to kind of reach out to you as well was because you're sitting on both sides of the fence here as well. You're not. You're not a sole bow hunter. You are using firearms as well, so you've got that perspective from both sides.
It's funny because I do in the past I had that sort of I won't say attitude, but that perception, I suppose. But it was a not a what would you say, an epiphany or such or whatever. But when I got my firearms license and then I got my rifles. I actually looked at my Instagram tag, which was Braken Bow Hunter, and went, "Well, I'm not just a bow hunter anymore." So I had to change that, and it's just Braken Hunter. But that then again, I go back to conversations I had 20 years ago when this not the same, but very similar. The pressures that were on. And have always been on hunting, I feel, since I've been heavily involved with it, from outside anti-hunting parties, sources, and sort of saying, well, not, not outspokenly in public, but in conversations around the campfire and stuff. But, isn't fishing hunting? Fishing is hunting. You are hunting a particular animal for a particular reason, using a particular, approach or type of method or whatever, but it doesn't seem to have the same pressures on it. But it doesn't matter. Hunting is hunting is hunting. And that realization more so for myself when I went through the process of getting my firearms license and purchasing my first rifle and then going, okay, well, I'm not just a bow hunter anymore. But the funny thing is, I was an avid fisherman as a kid. So I wasn't just a bow hunter then either. You know what I mean? I was a hunter. And yeah, the same grassroots, the same motivations when you talk to guys who hunt with rifles exclusively or hunt with bows exclusively. You talk to them and you go, well, what is it that drives you? And when you drill down to that, almost exclusively every time, the moral fiber is the same underlying motivations. And it's being in the outdoors, it's being, matching your wits against an animal or harvesting the meat. It's always comes down to the same basic things. And that's what a hunter is.
Yeah.
Irrespective of the tool.
Yeah. That's right. And I didn't mean to exclude them, but hound hunters are another form of hunting there that and again, when we see attacks on them, or whether it's attacks on bow hunters or attacks on fishing, we should all band together and support the cause to fight against it, because that old saying, when they came for the I'm drawing a blank on it now. They came.
I know the one you mean.
Yeah,
yep. I know the one you mean.
I didn't speak up because I didn't do this, and when they came for this, I didn't speak up because I didn't do that.
Yep.
And then when they came for me, I turned around and there was nobody there behind me to support me. Right. So yeah,
because they're all gone. I think that one has its roots in the Holocaust times.
Could be.
I think there's a quote that relates back to that, which when you look it up and you actually read it, it's extremely confronting.
Well, tagging onto your Instagram handle, then I'm going to segue into the clothing that I can see pictured behind you. So I'm a big fan of camouflage, and I know you don't need camouflage to go hunting. But in particular, what I like about camouflage clothing is that it's often very technical material and well-designed items of clothing that that do help you hunting. So regardless of whether it's got camouflage on it, but traditionally it used to be that a lot of the clothing that we needed had a particular camouflage on it anyway. But having said that, I do really like the appearance of the Braken Wear camo, and I guess that's why we're here to talk to you about Braken Wear. What's the journey that led you to this brand?
Well, funnily enough, I just bought it, and that has two aspects to it. So as I mentioned, I spent a considerable time overseas, and when I moved back, still didn't mostly it was career related. Didn't have the opportunity or the time to hunt, and then a while ago now, one of my best mates from my teenage years moved back also from overseas. He'd lived in Houston for a number of years, and when he came back, he's a predominantly a firearms guy, but he'd purchased and brought himself back a compound bow.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd had a few very basic intros, and even when we were kids, kicking around in scouts and that together, we'd fire the orange fiberglass recurve bows that almost everybody of our sort of vintage has shot at some point in their time. And he brought this thing back, and he came over for drinks one day, and he's going, "Well, I got this thing here, and I suppose you better teach me how to use it." And I'm like, well, okay, if we're going to do that, then we're not just punching paper, and I've got a reasonable sized backyard that I can safely shoot arrows in.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do this and get sorted, and we'll go do some hunting. So sorted all that out, and I maybe or not have been accused in the past of being rather translucently skinned, let's just say, and my face stands out a lot in the bush. So I'm aware that I have to cover up my face because, it's going to give me up every time.
Yeah, I've got
and I went,
good Irish skin, and of course the grey hair doesn't help either.
No, so I had to find my face hood that I had used in the past. So that was an ASAT pattern camo, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Which frustrated me because I was quite particular with the way I boxed up my stuff and stored it and whatnot. So my good friend was a friend of mine from hunting years ago. It was with social media and stuff, obviously still in touch with and whatever else. I'd seen him put up photos of wearing Braken Wear. So this guy's name is Howie Griffin. So for anyone who wants to look up Howie Griffin on socials, do yourself a favour. Heck of a bow hunter, spear fisher, the whole works.
Mm-hmm.
Really top bloke. No relation, but yes.
Yeah.
And I'd seen him wearing.
Is he is he in America or in Australia?
No, Howie's American. Sorry, no, Howie's not American. Howie's Australian.
Yeah.
Down on the north coast, New South Wales.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I do know the name, so I'm probably following him.
Yeah, put out a few DVDs a number of years ago. Really, really good DVDs to watch. They were back 15 odd years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'd seen Howie wearing Braken Wear, and I thought I'm going to have a look into this stuff because I really liked the pattern. And I looked it up and bought a face veil. And it arrived, and I was like, "Well, this is a really good bit of kit. It's really nice, lightweight, comfortable to wear sort of material." And I thought I'm going to have a look a bit further into these guys, and I want to learn a little bit more because I decided I'd wanted to update the gear that I had because I had a whole other story, but I had a lot of ASAT stuff. And whilst it's a sensational pattern, it wasn't modern technical material, and I knew what was available out there, more recent years than from when I'd purchased it, and I wanted to improve not only the gear that I was wearing, but its ability to suit what I knew it should be able to do for me in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
So I followed their socials a little bit more, and happened to come across an ad that they had the business for sale.
Right.
So that's what I meant. It's a twofold. I literally bought it. So I came across this ad. my friend who I said had come back from Houston, Bernie, and I'd been talking about something that we might want to do. He may or may not have bought a house 3 doors up the road, and we were talking about a bit of a side gig that we could each get into. And I flicked him the link, and I said, "Hey, have a look at this." And after a fair while of doing a due diligence and talking with the previous guys, Ben and Troy, who founded the company and owned it at that time, we bought the business off them. So
Yep.
it's it was not for us necessarily a matter of we look at the business and we want to. It wasn't necessarily motivated by the fact that we see it as a good investment. We saw the product, we got the product, we used the product, and we loved the product. And that was what the motivation was, I suppose, that we bought into the product before we bought the business. And we were sold on that before. And then when the opportunity came along that we happened to see, we're just like, well, we think we'd like to get into this a little bit more and do more with it and take it in other places as well.
For this Friends of the Podcast episode, something a little different. I'm going to revisit a previous friend of the podcast, On Track Meals, and I've received quite a few questions about the differences between their meals in terms of quality, flavour, and most of all, weight. So, as for those that listen to the episode with Eric from On Track Meals would know, On Track Meals provide a shelf-stable, ready-to-go meal. So they don't need water added. They just need to be heated, and can even be eaten cold as well, depending on which one it is. And Eric was very generous and gave me quite a few meals to take away and try. Since that time, I've also purchased some more meals and been supplied some other meals as well. So, getting into it now, the first meal that I got was spicy Mex beans. Now, when I took this away, I also took a 1/4 cup of couscous to go with it. The on-track meals do require some staples to go with them as well, but things like rice, pasta, couscous doesn't contribute a lot of weight. So the spicy Mex beans on their own were 264 grams. 1/4 cup of couscous added to that made that 314 grams. Bean bolognese, 270 grams for that on its own, and I took a 1/3 cup of risotto, which is the rice sort of pasta, and that made that 337 grams. Sweet and sour pork, 263 grams on its own, and I took a 1/3 cup of jasmine rice, so that was 328 grams. Coconut ginger chicken, 260 grams. I took a 1/3 cup of basmati rice, which was 327 grams in total. The slow-cooked Australian steak is 228 grams. Now, Eric tells me that the pumpkin and potato mash that they make was designed to go with that. That is 218 grams on its own. So the two of those added together as a meal was 446 grams. And I also had the all-day breakfast, which on its own is 273 grams. I didn't add anything to this because I didn't feel that it really needed it. But you could obviously take a couple of pieces of bread with you or something like that to add to it. So those are the weights. Now, when you compare those two dehydrated meals, so I had 3 dehydrated meals, freeze-dried meals that I like and regularly take away with me. The first one was a backcountry cuisine. Now this is a regular size. I think they make a small size as well, but I tend to find that I need the bigger size always in the freeze-dried meals. So that on its own was 175 grams. Now that's about 100 to 200 grams lighter than any of the backcountry meals. However, you also have to bear in mind that meal requires 438 milliliters of water to be added to it. So the total for that is 613 grams. A campus pantry meal. Now these are quite tasty, but they are only single serve, so not quite as big a meal, and I usually find that I need to have something else with that at the end of a long day. So that on its own was 80 grams. Again, you need 300 mils of water, so 380 grams. Outdoor Gourmet Company. Now this is a 2-serve. Again, 2-serve versus single serve. I never found the single serves were adequate for me. So the 2-serve. Now this particular one had a potato pouch in it as well. So on its own was 190 grams, and you need to add 250 mils to the pouch. To the meal. The potato pouch then has to be taken out and done separately, and you need to add 313 mils to that. So the total there is 753 grams. Now why I'm adding the water into these meals is because if you were somewhere where you had to carry your water in, so you didn't have a water source nearby to where you were camping or stopped to eat the meal, you would the weight of the water would be on your back. You also need to account for the fact that if you are short on water where you're going, that the water you put into your food is not water that you then have access to later on. So if you want to make a coffee or to drink, then you are using the water in the meals instead of saving it for that. However, the big difference between them, for those of you that have eaten freeze-dried meals before, is the taste. The flavours in the on-track meals are genuine home-cooked type flavours. In fact, I even mentioned to one of the guys that I was hunting with one day about the coconut ginger chicken that I ate, and I said that if you got that served up to you in a restaurant, you would not be unhappy. It was that is a great meal, great flavour. All of them were great, don't get me wrong, but that one was stand out my favourite. The all-day breakfast has big chunks of sausage, mushrooms, potatoes in it. It's in a nice, thick, rich gravy. It's a really satisfying meal. The slow-cooked steak has a big piece of steak in it. It's like slow-cooked meat is. It just melts in your mouth and really complements the pumpkin and potato mash. Bean bolognese, again, you know, if you had an Italian grandmother and she served you that up, you wouldn't know the difference. Spicy mixed beans went really well with the couscous. Would also work in like the bread pockets that you can get, and sweet and sour pork. I'm not full disclosure, I'm not a huge fan of sweet and sour. I probably ate too much Canton when I was a poor, struggling apprentice, but I still even enjoyed that meal. The other thing is too that the water you use to reheat the on-track meals can be reused, so it's not wasted. So what I would do is at night I would boil up the meals and then put the stove aside with the water still in it, and in the morning I would then use that for my coffee and could pour the remainder back into my water bladder. So you're not wasting any water there. The other thing is, however, though, you need to take into account that because you do have to boil the meals for about 3 minutes, there is an extra usage of gas. So if you're using a jet boil or a canister stove or similar, it does use up more gas because you are boiling it rather than just bringing your water to boil to then use to pour into the freeze-dried meal or to make your coffee. It does need to sit on a rolling boil and simmer away for 3 minutes. So you need to take that into account, that if you're going to use a few of these, you probably need to pack maybe an extra canister. There are more flavours available on the On Track website, and I'm going to work my way through them all. I've also bought the bars that they have, the chocolate and the apricot bars. They're both really good. Thoroughly recommend them. Great to throw in your a few of those in your food bag to take away with you on a trip. And in terms of the how I can see myself using these, I probably wouldn't take a full week's worth away with me on a backpacking trip. I would probably take 2 or 3 and work them into the menu in combination with dehydrated and freeze-dried meals. Simply because most of the places I go, there is water available or nearby. However, the quality of the meals would just be really good to mix in to break up what can sometimes be a struggle to eat. So for anyone that's had to eat freeze-dried meals for multiple days, 5, 7, 10 days, it does become a bit of a struggle to eat them. So if you had an on-track meal mixed in there, the first meal, maybe somewhere in the middle and maybe one at the end, would definitely give you something to look forward to. So that's probably how I will be approaching it from now on. But the other thing too is, because I'm up in Queensland, if I want to hunt in Victoria, it's a 2.5 day drive for me to get down there. So you've got to find somewhere to eat on the way. Usually, you stop at a service station, grab whatever's in the hot box or something quick and easy on the way, and consequently end up eating unhealthy, particularly at the popular fast food outlets. So by the time I arrive and I'm ready to go, I have all this unhealthy food sitting in my gut and usually not feeling the best. So probably what I would do is bring along a few of these to eat on the way down and eat on the trip back as well. Very easy to heat up on the side of the road, quick to eat, and you're eating real food, stuff that you would be happy to cook for yourself at home. So I hope I've answered all the questions for everyone. I did receive a lot of interest, and I hope that people got out there and used the code that On Track Meals provided, the Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast listeners. And I'm going to be providing more feedback in the future, potentially on some other changes. I contacted Eric and discussed a couple of ideas that I had. So stay tuned. There might be a collaboration coming out in the future. Please let me know if you do have any more questions, want any more information about the meals themselves, details about the meals individually, the nutritional information, allergen advice and so forth is all on the On Track Meals website. I still have a couple of pieces of ASAT camo
nice.
in my cupboard, actually. That's probably one of my I think personally one of the most universal camouflage patterns, and particularly well suited for Australia, obviously with the shades in it. But you can't seem to get too much of it anymore.
It's a shame. And I'll tell you a funny story. I was actually the first person to import. Like I had an agreement with ASAT in the States, and I was importing the gear. I was exclusive importer of it. Mm-hmm. This is going back to the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And life circumstances, I sort of moved away from it. Mm-hmm. And I think it might have been one of the big archery retailers took it on at that point in time. But I had a really good relationship with Chuck. Chuck Pencil was the guy's name. And he was working for ASAT over in the US. And and I've said it before a number of times in recent years, where I see our Braken Wear pattern and the colours, the tones, as the modern version of the ASAT pattern.
Yep. And
it's using technical fabrics.
Yep.
So for me, the combination of those two things, like I said, from when I first looked at it, I went, that's what ASAT should be now. Mm-hmm. And it just it all comes together to the same effect.
And so what you've essentially been able to do then is mold this initial product that you then bought and then reinvent it essentially from the looks. I'm looking at the website now, and you've got quite a few different items of clothing, different sort of weight items. So hot weather, cold weather. You've even got some blaze sort of mixed in there. A couple of other things. So yeah, keep going with that story then. After you took the company over, and then what did you sort of do then in terms of the direction you went with it?
So basically, our approach was, or our ideal is that, we bought into, like I said before, we bought into the product before we bought the business. And we use the product when we go hunting, not just because obviously we can get it cheaper than everyone else because we own the company, but we are wholly sold on the fact that the stuff is comfortable to wear. It performs well. It does everything we want it to in the field. And so I guess you'd say our underlying premise is that we just want to sell, and we want the public to be able to we want hunters to be able to have good quality stuff. Whether that is cold gear or whether that is lighter summer gear, or, we brought out the pattern in the blaze orange, and to date we've done the caps as an initial product with those pattern, those colors on it. For example, for guys down south hunting in state forests and whatnot, to be able to access our pattern, but in a bit of gear that they have to have on them if they're going to hunt under their state laws. But in essence, we back the product because we know and we believe in the product as an exceptional piece of gear. And we are, wanting to always move forward with gear, be it we're making completely new items or we're improving what we've got, which maintains that standard. And that's the underlying premise, I suppose. And then, looking at, if we're looking at bringing out new lines, then we want to make sure we put that legwork in so that when we do bring something to the market, we've got the feedback from multiple sources. We've ironed out the kinks in the prototypes, and that we can then put something out that we know we've got 100% faith in for example, our 2-year warranty that we offer.
So when in Australia, if we were to order something, it would it come from Australia, or would it have to come? Do you have a storage location overseas that it ships from?
It comes from my place here.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yep. So we had a massive warehouse facility in Brisbane when we first bought the business, and we acquired all the stock, and we had a whole bunch more stock manufactured and that sort of thing. But we've found a more personal approach in being able to manage it ourselves, rather than not necessarily through an external provider, I suppose, but just more hands-on. For example, an order came through last night at about 11:15. I picked it, packed it, batched it, sent it off, and it was in the post before the post office had even opened. They've got those little red lockers out the front. Yeah. Went down, punched it in, stuck it on, and it's already gone today. So the other side of that is I'm able to do. We have an exchange process where, if being that it's mailed to you and you try it on, if it doesn't fit or it's not what you want, you can send it back, or you can exchange it or whatever. Then as owners of the business, we have hands on that. It's not a third party or whatever. Yeah. So
that's been a complication previously, one that I've experienced, and I know other people have, when you're buying things from particularly America. Obviously, they've got a much larger hunting market over there, so a lot more range. But a particular brand, I rang them. I wanted these pants. I rang them and I told them, this is, I've got another pair of your pants in this size. What size in this particular model do you recommend? Yep, get the 36. 36 rocks up, and I can just about put my fist down between my waist and the waistband on it. so not even close to being wearable. And so I
Yeah.
contacted them and I said, look, it's too big. You know, what's the process? And they said, yeah, send it back. You know, that's no dramas. We'll swap it over for you as long as it's, you know, unworn basically and still has the tags attached. And I said, look, I don't want to be sounding mean, but you know, by the time I send this back, I pay for postage over there, and then I'm assuming you're going to make me pay for postage to send the new one back. That's almost the cost of the pants.
Yep.
You know, is there something you can do? Can you meet me halfway? And no, sorry, that's just bad luck.
Yep.
So yeah, being able to source something a lot closer to home, you know, where if we did have to do that and did have to send it back, the cost of postage is not prohibitive. So I ended up giving those pants away because it just was more cost effective. So
Yep. So we have our return policy is such that you send it back at your cost, but we send it back to you at our cost.
yep.
You know, so you're only paying that return shipping, and I guess that is the bite of buying online. We can't absorb all the cost, but we do think it's a fair exchange to, like you said, meet you halfway. The other thing we have that is accessible through our website is, and we have our Instagram and Facebook accounts as well. But on the website there is a chat function.
Yep.
And like literally sitting here chatting to you now, someone's messaged through and asking a few questions. So, you know, typically without being rude and not wanting to interrupt here, I would just, if I had if I was not tied up with work or something, I'd jump on, quick send a message back, answer their questions and go like that. But literally knowing you're talking to the guy who manages your orders and sorts that a whole lot out, I can, you know, people ask questions about, you know, I'm this big or I'm this tall, or should I buy this bit of gear, or I live here, is this suited for that, or whatever. Straight away I can just answer those questions, no problems at all.
Yeah. A lot of the chat things that you see on people's websites are now run by AI, so you can ask a question and you're never confident that you're actually going to get the answer that you're after. And normally,
yes, we run around in circles sometimes, don't we?
Yep. Yeah.
Our initial contact, I have a pre-set up reply that basically just says, you know, thanks for getting in touch. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Yep.
And that again is, you know, mostly because of, you know, life in certain instances does make us very busy and it's impossible to reply straight away. But not almost, but I always try and get back as soon as I can to someone just to let them know I've got their message, and I will reply as soon as I can.
Yeah. So what are your top selling items then?
Our top gear, definitely our Scorcher tops, and they're also my favourite bit of gear. They are super lightweight, long sleeve shirts, a fabric that it's a hyper thin nylon-y fabric. I couldn't tell you what the composition is off the top of my head. I should know. But they're the same material as the face veils. And as I was saying before, that was the first bit of kit that I ever bought off Braken Wear, and I was just blown away at how light and cool and breathable it is. And then to have a whole shirt with long sleeves, the thumb holes in there to keep it down over your cuffs and whatnot. Just when I put a bit more coin into the account and bought that as well, I was just absolutely blown away. But definitely our favourite bit of kit, and I think rightly so. I've never worn another camo top like it ever anywhere. And then what we call the mountain ray pants. So they're our cooler summer pants, and they go together. People typically will buy the top and the pants in the same fashion. Definitely.
Is that a similar material, or it's just a cooler, still a cooler type of, but different to the shirt?
Oh yeah, no, it's a more durable, hard wearing, 4-way stretch technical fabric. It's not the same lightweight nylon. It just has to be more durable with crawling or sliding or that sort of stuff. The the coolest thing I love, apart from the big vents that are up the legs at the back, um, is that now it depends on what you call them as to from where you are in the country, but we call them cobbler's pegs up here, or
Yep.
some people call them friends prickles, the little black cylindrical
Little
bastards with the little
yep, little black
prongy
things
things on the end.
that'll stick to glass just about.
They stick
Yep.
to everything.
Yep.
Well, they'll stick to the pants, but you just brush them off. You just wipe your hand down your pants and they come off.
Yep.
It's phenomenal. And I hunt in some of the country where they grow 6 foot, 7 foot tall, and you just get them everywhere, and you just brush them off, and it's just like, how good is this? This is unreal. I literally have a pair of 3D ASAP pants that have been in a plastic bag since it'd have to be 2006. That got full of cobbler's pegs, and they're still there. And I'm like, oh, one day I'll sit down and pull them out. No, I won't. Yeah. Not now. I may as well burn them.
Yeah, I actually burnt a set of pants once because they were chock-a-block full of cobbler's pegs and speargrass. And
it's insane.
Yeah,
yeah. But that's one of the coolest things about those pants is that they just brush off, and you don't have to sit there and pick them out. And yeah, it's a bit of a pain.
And then you've got caps and buffs and gloves and so forth to go with it.
Again, we're trying to. Our longer term goal with the company or the business is to fill out everything in a layering system.
Yeah.
So what we don't have at the moment is a base layer for the colder climates, where we have designs, we have prototypes, and we're moving forward with that. Coming out of the back of COVID, I don't think there's a business out there that hasn't experienced a slowdown. So that's something that probably in the time frame that we've owned the business hasn't helped us. And moving forward, things coming out of that and picking up better is helping us from a business position to be able to reinvest in stock, and then B in developing new things. So we are super keen to bring on board a base layer, and then be able to have that as an option for people, particularly again in the southern states or guys going overseas to New Zealand and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Having said that, we also know Queensland can get bloody cold too if you go to the wrong place at the wrong the wrong time.
Yeah. I don't imagine. I remember when I was up where you were living. If we got down in the low teens, temperature-wise, we were complaining because it was too cold. And I remember complaining one day. I was walking out in the backyard and I thought, "Oh, geez, it's a bit chilly at the moment, isn't it?" And I'm there in shorts and a t-shirt.
Yep.
That was in the middle of winter. So, yeah, but no, definitely other places. I mean, there has been snow recorded down in southern Queensland, down towards the border country, and I know some of the desert.
And as we were talking earlier in the locale that we used to live not far from each other, it gets mighty cold. I remember it's -7, -8 out there, and that's cold enough for this Queenslander.
Yeah. And one of the things, I'm just looking at the pictures of the pants that you're talking about. Two features there I really like. Number one, you've got some nice solid tabs on the zippers, making it easy to find if you're wearing gloves and use them. And you've got the button is sewn on with some strapping, not sewn on, but actually physically bolted, for want of a better term, onto the pants. Nothing worse than that thread getting pulled and then you lose your main button on your pants.
Yeah, or a press stud that pops open when you lean over. Or 100%.
I don't see it listed here, so I'll ask the question. But do they have knee pads or pockets for knee pads or anything like that?
So the mountain raid pants themselves don't, but our the winter pants, the
peak.
This is terrible.
Oh yeah, no, peak season.
The peak season. Thanks, mate. The peak season pants do.
I can see that. Yep. Right.
Yep. And they've also got the double layered seat in them as well. So, for example, you're sitting your backside on either heavy dew or snow if you're in the alpine country glassing. That will with the DWR on it, that'll keep you dry for a significant amount of time.
Yep. I guess one other thing I can see that you probably might want to think about, whatever my thoughts are worth to you,
It's all good feedback, mate.
a set of gaiters.
100%. Yep. Um, we. It's a really interesting thing because when, and it was a fun experience when we first um, bought the business and then took over obviously the running of it and put announcements on social media and stuff like that. Um, the amount of um, messages, PMs, emails, and that sort of stuff you get incoming with people and comments about clothing and changing this or changing that or making this or making that or getting rid of this or getting rid of that. It's eye opening. On top of some other things that I won't mention, but um, gators are one where some people love them to death and won't go walking without them or hunting without them, hiking, and other people have never used them and never will. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. We have looked into it and started to move into the line of going, okay, well, what design features have we seen in other products that we liked or don't like, and what either looped style or attachment styles, because how they all vary with velcros or clips or zips or that sort of thing, and then what sort of what's the word? How do we see them representing our brand best moving forward and what we want to put out there? I have to admit it's not at the top of our list of priorities.
Yep.
But it is on the list.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, it looks like you've sort of got all the seasons covered, including some t-shirts. What do you call that?
Our logo wear.
Logo wear. That's the word I'm looking for. So people can rep the brand when they're not out hunting. Even. What's the best way for people to connect with you and check it out and have a chat?
So our Braken Wear website is just brakenwear.com. Now it's Braken, not CK.
Okay.
BRAKENWEAR.com. And we are on Instagram as Braken Wear as well, all one word. And we are also on Facebook as Braken Wear, which would be two words. And then anytime you want to email us, sales@Brakenwear or hello@Brakenwear, but typically the sales@brakenwear.com is the best one to use. I'm personally available, luke@brakenwear.com. If you want to speak to someone directly on the phone, I'll happily point you to the top of our webpage where my business partner and good friend Bernie will have his phone number and you can ring him and have a chat with Bernie. But ideally, again, in this day and age, the instant messages, Facebook, Instagram, and on the website there, email, they're probably the best way to get hold of us. And like I said earlier, you can rest assured that I will always try and get back to people as soon as I can. And then, more on from that, if I can't answer your questions or whatever, or if it's best that we just have a chat on the phone. For example, I've had people put in orders, and when I go through to our Australia Post mailing system and put their address in, it's come back with, you won't recognise their address. It tries to self-propagate and match it up with their mapping system. And instead of, it going to the wrong place and me just going, oh, close enough's good enough, I'll actually get on the phone and say, hey, Jono, it's Luke here from Braken Wear, mate. I'm just having this drama with your order. Is this correct, or did is there a bit of a mistake in the typo or whatever, and sort it out that way. But yeah, it's I just think it's a convenience we try and offer people, to offer that support. And again, the feedback, like your question about the gators, it's we like to have the feedback come in because it keeps us looking forward,
Mm.
and inevitably we want to be able to grow the product and grow the business to put things out there that hunters want to have. A rain jacket, for example, that's on our list as well. We have a prototype made up that is exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to be able, we need to make sure that when we sign off on it and kick it into action, it is as good as we need it to be.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's also for a small business too. It's having that faith in that financial outlay to put it out there and hope like hell that you're going to be able to sell everything and recoup. I was talking to a guy over in New Zealand the other day. He makes Mountain Gear is his brand. He makes walking sticks and bipods and ultralight carbon fiber bipods and so forth. And he's talking about this new product that he's bringing out. He wants to bring out a tripod, and he has to outlay initially just to get the raw materials, the one part of the raw materials. It's going to cost him $100,000 outlay just to get the raw material shipped to him before he even turns over a dollar. And I thought, wow, that's an impressive commitment. Yeah, so
absolutely.
Yeah, you've got to have that faith, I guess, that what you're putting out there is going to be right. Because if it's not, word will quickly spread through the industry, and you'll be stuck with a whole heap of stock that you can't get rid of, I guess.
That's it. And look, again, like I said, the experiences predominantly for myself, because there's three of us that own the company, but I guess you'd say I'm the outward facing customer, interface person.
Well, mate, if you're the pretty face of the company, then it's
I
in
didn't
trouble.
say that. I didn't. I definitely didn't say that. I got a face like a drop pie and a head to match. No, I had one person message me one day, and they were chasing, I don't know, maybe it was 6XL something or other, or 5XL something or other. And we stopped 4XL and I think size 46 pants in the Mountain Ray range, and 4XL in the jackets and stuff. And he said, "Oh, when are you going to make something that's bigger?" And I said, "Mate, we go to our manufacturer and say, okay, we want some shirts. We don't get to order 6 at a time." I said they have minimum quantities of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. It depends on what the item is. The quantity might change a bit. But I said, when you break that down and you add up the cost and you add up the viability of making the size for you, for example, the only person that's come to me about making something in that regard, I said, we have to, in reality, go, okay, there is a business decision that has to be made at some point. And if it doesn't work out that it's viable to make 6XL clothes because there's only one person that's ever asked about making them, or we see maybe, for example, our 4XL stuff doesn't move much, whereas our medium, large, and extra large stuff disappears really quickly, then we have to taper our sizing and our purchasing to make smart business decisions so we can continue to put bread on the table, because we are a small business and we are 3 families that own it. And I dead set got abused. And I'm like, I'm sorry, mate. That's the reality of the situation of a small business. We can't just go making 1 or 2 niche things here because somebody asked for them. We have to think of it on that scale. And in that regard, again, it's disappointing when people react in that way, to you being able to say, we would absolutely, and don't get me wrong, we would love to be able to, but it's not the reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right. And that's like you say, that's the reality. You're not Kmart. You're not out there, bringing something in that's going to service everyone in the community. The reality is you're a small business. There's always going to be people at the ends of the spectrum that you're going to miss out, simply because it's not realistic financially for you to be able to service them as well. And it's not out of spite. You're not
100%.
You're not fat biased here or anything like that. It's just that the cost to produce half a dozen shirts, as you say, you might as well burn your wallet and burn your cash.
Yeah, that's it. And we all know, the class across the past 12, 18 months, how much the cost of everything has gone up.
Mm.
You know, from getting something manufactured to getting it shipped, to having it come through customs, to then be able to post it out, even to stick it on the shelf and have it sit there.
Mm.
Those costs, escalating all the time. We actually haven't put a price rise in 2 years.
Yeah, right. Yep.
We have not raised the price of anything on our shelf in 2 years. And we haven't necessarily done that deliberately, but we just have gone, well, you know what? Like, we make quality stuff and we believe in the gear, and this is the price it's at.
Mm.
That's where it is.
Mm.
And we have very, very, very few people come back to us unhappy with what they've bought. And if at all, it might be, again, a size that's too big or too small or something like that.
Mm.
Or it just doesn't suit the way they hunt, and that's fine. We don't make something for everybody. It's just not the way it rolls.
Yeah.
But we have that exchange process there, or we have that refund process there as well.
Mm.
But then we have a couple of guys that I'm going to name drop here, Scotty and Jamie from Urban to Outland. You can look them up on YouTube. And they are, there's not a bit of gear that we have that they don't own.
Yeah.
They're a top bunch of lads. I've known them for well over 20 years through bow hunting. And, the rigor that they hunt with and the hiding that they give their gear, and they're so happy with what we've got, that they're just like, yeah, we just love it, absolutely love your gear, and we just, what have you got next, what's coming, what are you doing, what are you making, what can we get, every time they're hassling me all the time. But they're just top blokes who have, they, I don't like to sound tacky, but they believe in the brand. And that's what we're about. We're not about selling something to somebody because we want to make money. We want people to believe in the brand like we do, and go, this is good gear, and the reasons behind it and the guys behind it are hunters who, it sounds tacky, but it's, hunters making stuff for hunters.
Yeah, well, that's really what gives brands like yours credibility, is that somebody has, and I've spoken to a few people who are like that. They're hunters themselves. They've identified a need for something. They went looking for it, couldn't find it, so they've gone, oh, bugger it, I'm going to make it myself. I'm going to have a crack, and they've done reasonably well. So the fact that you yourself are a hunter, the Urban to Outland guys are using it and abusing it, that's the sort of stuff that gives the brand credibility. Because in this day and age, we do have the disadvantage of choice, I guess, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah.
There is so much stuff out there that we can access, and a lot of the times, really what it comes down to is one element that you like about that particular brand that makes you choose it over another brand, and then you do commit to it because the gear is good. The first bit of gear you liked, it works, so you get another bit, so you get more, and then you get more, and that's what keeps you coming back and keeps you supporting the brands like Braken Wear. So.
And look, at the same time, I can't speak more highly of Ben and Troy, who founded the company back in 2012. What those guys haven't hunted isn't worth writing on a postage stamp. So, and the game they've taken, and the knowledge and experience, the time and effort and the research that they put into developing it all, and then us being able to, take over and try and, I suppose, emulate or give the brand the respect that we felt it was deserved. Both phenomenal hunters in their own right. If you look up Troy's escapades with rooster deer, you're just mind blowing. So it speaks for itself as well. I feel that any good brand, be it our brand or others, is backed by guys that use it, not just a big corporation that's making it and dropping it into Kmart or Walmart or BCF.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing. And again, we like to support small business, and small business, is the backbone of the country. Where would we be without it at the end of the day?
Yeah. And unfortunately, in Australia, we don't have much in the way of manufacturing anymore. So for whatever in whatever way we can, I think it's important for us as Australian hunters to support as many Australian-based companies as possible.
It's one of the hardest things that we struggle with, because when we took over the business, and when we took over the company, bought the business, we we were absolutely invested in manufacturing as much as we could in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And we have spoken to uh, a number of different people in the field, to the point where, for example, we sat down with one manufacturer and said, okay, well, our down jacket, for example, we want to make that here.
Mm.
We want to start with something, and we want to eventually onshore everything that we make. And they costed it out for us at over $850. Costed it out.
Yep.
No profit margin. And you turn around and you go, how on earth, and I like to support local, but at the same time, I don't know anybody who's not going to Antarctica that's not paying, or that's going to pay $850 for a jacket.
Mm.
And I love it. I'm like I said, I'm going to Canada and the US and Europe through winter, or late, late autumn and winter. I'm taking a Braken Wear down jacket. And my wife's like, you can't take that as camouflage. That's like, I'm like, I don't care. It's the best down jacket I've ever owned, and I lived in Switzerland for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But no one's paying $850 plus markup for a bit of profit to,
Yep.
to put bread and butter on my kid's table.
Yep.
It's just not reality. And there's other skill sets with other garments that we want to make, and some we do make now, that either the skill sets don't exist, or the technology and the machinery don't exist in this country anymore.
Yep.
We've sat down with we did a lot of really hard legwork trying to nail down who can we talk to in the industry that can help us with the cause that we want to onshore, and we want to do Australian made. So we ended up getting in contact with, stumbling across somehow, one of my business partners. There's a couple. He's I don't know what the right term is, but I'd say he's a fabric chemist. So he can do the magic chemistry stuff to make the technical fabrics.
Yep.
And she's a seamstress and can do all the machining work and stuff. But we went and visited them, took everything we make, and they just went, it just can't be done in this country.
Mm-hmm.
They literally sat there and went, this is amazing quality gear. This is really, really good shit. And I'm not saying that to blow our own trumpet, so to speak, but that was literally what they said.
Yeah.
But we can't, you can't make it here. They would said that garment there, for example, again, the machinery and the skill sets don't exist in the industry here anymore.
Yeah.
And that for us was very deflating, because we want to be able to support local, but it's almost at the point where supporting local means you support the guy who has to get it made somewhere else.
Yep.
And that again is just unfortunate reality of
Yeah.
manufacturing in Australia.
Yeah. I heard Rob Fickling do a presentation down at the Deer Expo, and he was talking about the new range of backpacks that he's brought out, and essentially they're a step away from being basically a custom fitted pack for people. It's very interesting design that he's got. But he talked about that exact same sort of struggle of trying to find somebody to manufacture it, and the reality was that he had to then go offshore because they have factories over there set up the size of small cities to do all this sort of stuff, so they can do it efficiently, effectively, and within budget to suit, so that we're not paying, as you say, the better part of $1,000 for a down jacket.
And it is, it's. I certainly, smarter people than me don't have the answers, so I certainly don't have the answer. It's just we just know daily, but very regularly, we wish we could be able to support that aspect of the industry more, but that aspect of the industry just doesn't exist to be able to support us, and in turn support people who want to buy gear from us. And we all know full and well you've got the option of a jacket of the same quality for half the price, or a jacket that's twice the price, we know where 99.9% of us are going to be spending our money, And again, our hope is that, people are happy to look at us and say, well, there's literally 3 Australian families, 3 blokes with kids and wives who are working hard every day to be able to bring us quality product, irrespective of being at us or other guys in the hunting game that manufacture fox calls or supply archery gear or whatever it is, that they acknowledge the effort and the time and the struggle to try and be able to bring good stuff and make good stuff for Australian hunters to have,
Yeah. At the same time, I'm a big advocate of buy once, cry once.
Absolutely.
So if you've got to pay a little bit more for a good bit of gear, then spend that money now, because it'll cost you twice as much down the track otherwise.
Yep, 100%. And that, like, I love that saying. I think, but we also know there's a caveat, which is there is a threshold. There is a threshold at some point, and the jacket example is a bit of an extreme, but I wouldn't pay $150 for a jacket. I've paid significant money for what I consider to be clothing, especially in some of the climates I have lived in, but no way I'd pay $150 for a jacket. There is a threshold. Some people can afford it, some people can justify it, but other people sort of, I think the majority of us are average Joes, and we might cross that threshold for certain bits of gear, like our binos or our night vision scope or our thermal scope or our rifle or whatever. But I think there is a threshold for everybody.
Yeah. Yep.
That comes with it.
Yeah. Luke, thanks so much. I'm mindful of your time, mate, because I know you're running a small business from home there, and you've got kids probably coming home from school soon and so forth. So I really appreciate the conversation today.
No, it's been a great chat, mate. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Well, I look forward to staying in touch with you anyway. And
for sure.
I guess before we go, one final question I'm going to ask you is, what's your dream hunt with a bow? What animal, where with a bow?
Well, it's funnily enough, like I mentioned the elk earlier, and that's always been. I'm not a real bucket list guy, with the exception of places I'd like to go. Having lived and travelled overseas a fair bit up until I met my mate Keith, who's been to over 70 countries. I thought I'd travelled a fair few, but I have a long way to go short of him yet. But other things, I haven't really been one to sort of stop and think about bucket list or those sort of things much. But if I had to, I would definitely say elk. And funnily enough, I was, as we do, surfing through Instagram just the other day, and I saw some footage of a bow hunter taking a caribou.
Yep.
And for me, they'd have to be on a par. They're just amazing animals. The wilderness that they live in, and the hunt you would have to be able to harvest them.
Yeah.
I'm not really big on guided hunts per se, but again, talking with a friend the other day, if that is the way it is in where you can access the hunt, then that's just the way it is. But I'd like to, and even a few weeks ago when I was out hunting with my mates, they decided to have a snooze in the afternoon, and I had a quick nap, and I got up and went for a hunt for myself. But ideally, if I could self hunt or hunt with a friend for elk or caribou. And maybe while I'm in those necks of the woods in the next coming months, I can make some contacts and line something up for the future. That would be something phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, I believe caribou are there's 3 animals I think you can hunt in Alaska without having to have a guide with you, and caribou are one of them.
Okay.
In a lot of areas. Some areas you might have to, but there are quite a few areas there you can do it self-guided. So
yeah,
could be a reality for you.
well, there's a guy who loves our Braken Wear stuff. Todd, he's up in Alaska, and so I might have to touch base and see see what he could line up.
Yeah.
But I've got to get across the line with the Minister on Finance first, and after this 3.5-month escapade overseas, I think it'll be on the back burner until the bank balance is a little bit more friendly for it.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Yeah, so we'll see how we go.
Yeah, very good. All right, mate. Well, look, all the best with the business.
Thanks, mate.
And
Thanks.
hope everything. I'm glad to hear you made it through COVID without too many scars. And again, I just encourage people to support a small Australian business as much as they can.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Good, mate. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I love what you do with the podcast. I've listened to all the episodes so far.
Oh, thank you. So you're the one.
No, it's good, and I certainly appreciate the learning experience as well, for various reasons that Braken Wear followers might find out in the near future. So
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned to this Bat channel. Yeah. So no, mate, and wishing you all the successes with the podcast and your hunting endeavours as well, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a good chat.
I'm having good fun with it. So we
awesome.
we might have to touch base again in the future and get you on another time to do the
anytime
update the news.
Too easy, man.
Hey, thank you for listening in. If you'd like to contact me for a chat, pass on any feedback, or have some ideas for future podcasts, please reach out to me on Instagram at australian_hunting_backcountry or email australian.hunting.backcountry@outlook.com.au. For now though, please look after yourselves and your mates.